Why am I getting an email sent to an address that's similar to mine? Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Let's dive right into this question. My email address is example@gmail.com, and about a week ago I started receiving emails, mainly advertising and spam, but all from the USA, and I live in Portugal, that were sent to example@aol.com. I tried sending an email to this other example, but it got returned saying the address doesn't exist. Yet, that is the address that the senders are using, and they are somehow coming to me. Is this some sort of phishing or someone being naughty? Have you come across this before? So to clarify, in this question, the example is actually a real email address. I've removed it just for privacy's sake, obviously, and so that other people potentially with similar email addresses don't start getting spam. And you'll see why in a moment. It's the equivalent of leo@askleo.com. It's the Leo part of that, and I'll be talking about that as well. But for the discussion here, I'm going to be using the word example over and over again as the email address. So I want to be clear. This is spam. It's nothing more than spam. Mark it as spam and move on. If you're interested in how this is happening, why you're getting it, even though it's not really addressed to you, watch on. So we need to talk first about email addresses and the two parts that they have. An email address consists of, at the end, after the @ sign, the domain. That's the name of the service or the email server that is handling email for all of the email addresses on that domain. So for example, at gmail.com, well, that implies the email is handled by Google's mail servers. At AOL.com means that the email is handled by the AOL.com email servers. And indeed, if it's at askleo.com, then it's email handled by the askleo.com server. The part in front of the email address, in front of the @ sign, is the specific email address or email account that the email is destined for. So for example, in the case of leo@askleo.com, it's destined for Leo. There could be, and in fact there are, other email addresses on the askleo.com domain, but it's that part in front of the @ sign that says who that email is destined for. So with those two out of the way, one thing we have to talk about also then is spam. And the fact that spammers, when they spam, what they're looking for is your attention. What they want you to do is open their mail and then, of course, act on their mail, whatever that mail might be. Maybe it's a link, maybe it's a phishing attempt, maybe it's an attachment that they want you to open. But the bottom line is that they want your attention, and they want it to at least look legitimate enough to perhaps pique your curiosity. And that's what's happening here. What spammers will do is they will take an email address, they'll take that first part, the part in front of the @ sign, and then assume that because a person created it at one service, maybe they or someone else created it at another service, say all of the popular services. For example, let's say that your email address begins with example. You are example at something. Somehow the spammers determine that. They get your email address however spammers get your email address. It could be harvested from websites. It could be part of a data breach where your email address was exposed. Doesn't matter. Doesn't even have to be your email address. It could be somebody else's email address that just happens to use the same part in front of the @ sign. Maybe they are example@outlook.com, you are example@gmail.com, and it's example@outlook.com that got breached somehow, that got exposed somehow. Spammers have that in their hands. What they do is they take that first part, example, and they try it at every free or popular email service they can think of. So simply because example@outlook.com has been discovered, now example@aol.com, example@gmail.com, example@hotmail.com, example@msn.com, example at any number of other popular email services is going to start getting spam as these spammers try all these different variations. The thinking is that because you created, or because somebody created an email address that begins with example at, there's reason for that to be a valid email address. Maybe there's enough reason for that to be a valid email address across a bunch of different services, so why not try them all? They don't care that it failed, right? They don't care that maybe most of those variations don't exist. As you discovered, your example at AOL.com bounced. It doesn't exist. Spammers sent mail to that email address. They don't care. There's no downside for them in sending emails that don't go anywhere. What they care about are the few that do. And of the few that do, it doesn't really even take that many. It also doesn't take that many for them to consider the campaign a success, because it really only takes one person clicking on that link or opening that attachment for spam to work. So given that it's being sent to all of these different example at domains, and you happen to have example at gmail.com, how did you get it if it says example at AOL.com on the to line? That actually turns out to be pretty simple. You were BCC'd. Blind carbon copy. It's a way of sending an email to someone without having their email address or their name exposed in the email in any way. It's very common, and it's a very common way for spammers to send spam. My theory is that your example was sent to example at AOL.com and then BCC'd to you at example at gmail.com. Probably BCC'd to a lot of other example at email addresses at the same time. You got it because it was sent to you. You did not get it because it went to AOL and then something magic happened over there that forwarded it to you. That's not how it works. The email that went to that AOL email address, it went there, and either there's someone there with an account to whom it was delivered, or, as you saw in your case, it bounced. That has nothing what to do with you and your example at gmail.com account. What happened, again, was simply that you were BCC'd on that same email. This is a very common technique that spammers use to pique your interest, for exactly the reason that you asked the question. This kind of looks like it went to me, but it's not to me because that's not my email address. I wonder what it's about. It gets you to open the email, it gets you to look at the email, it gets you to ask the question, and then, hopefully, from a spammer's perspective, you act on that email. Don't. It's nothing more than spam. There's no forwarding going on. The email went directly to you, and it is nothing more than spam. And what do we do with spam? We mark it as spam, and we get on with our lives. That's really all that's necessary here. That's all you need to do. There's nothing special, nothing magical going on. It's just spam. Good on you to be skeptical. Skepticism is always called for, and this is a great sign of something not being quite correct. If the email looks like it's to you, but it's the wrong email address, that's a sign it might be spam. There's a pretty good sign that it might be spam. If you're nowhere near the to line, if your email address, your name, or anything that even remotely resembles your identity is on the to line, well, that's a possibility that it might be spam. There are legitimate reasons for other people to BCC you on emails, but it's a place for you to continue to be skeptical. It's one more thing to pay attention to, and it's one more thing that you can use to help identify spam. Mark spam as spam, move on with your life. I hope that was helpful. I hope that helps you understand a little bit of what might be happening here. For updates for the original article on which this video is based, for comments and more, visit askleo.com/136523. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.